Morning everyone, welcome to Needles, Thread and Little Betty. My name's Mandy, this is Little Betty. Good morning. You sit there, darling. So welcome to part 3 of the English paper piecing project. And just to do a bit of a recap of parts 1 and part 2, which you can see on the channel. Part 1 was just talking a little bit about templates, attaching fabric to templates. And if you remember, we've been using these 1-inch triangles, which are quite sort of small and fiddly. And we basted the fabric onto the triangles, onto the templates. And then we kind of moved to part 2 where it was sewing the triangles together. And what I said in that video was I was going to sew them. I made the pattern that I wanted to have in the different fabrics, and then I was going to sew them in strips and then sew the strips together layer by layer. So I finished up with this. And the piece of fabric that you want to make, depending on the project, you just make it to the size that you want. What you need to do though is when you're sewing the triangles together, although you're only sewing kind of like the edges of the fabric, the edges of the folds, which was explained in the other videos, there will still be some shrinkage to the size. So just bear in mind that it will actually work out slightly smaller than you were expecting. So obviously it's a good idea to just make it a little bit bigger than what you need. The other thing to remember is that once you've got the finished piece of fabric that you've made, a lot of the time, these edges, if you can see these triangle edges, they'll be leveled off. So again, that can make it slightly smaller than what you were anticipating. So just bear that in mind, and just the safest thing is to always make it slightly bigger than what you need. Okay, so the next part, and I've already started this, is taking out the basting stitches, which were what we did in part 1, and then removing all the papers. Now, if you remember, I said I'll remove my papers at the end, which is what I've waited till I finished, then I've started. You can remove the papers as you go along. It's just that it's not as easy to work with if it's more flimsy. If you just hold up a piece of cloth and you're trying to sew bits together, it's a little bit more flimsy. So with it being a bit stiffer, it just makes it that easier to sew your bits together. Okay, we're getting there. So that's the size that I want to make the little jacket for, or little coat for little Betty. And so all I'm going to do now is just finish off taking out the basting stitches, not the stitches where you're sewing the triangles together, and taking out all the papers. So as I've said, I've done a lot of it already prior to the video. You don't want to be sitting and listening to me while I'm taking out all of them, because it can be quite time consuming. So I'm just using a needle, a stitch picker, and basically, because the basting stitches were quite loose and quite big, they're quite easy to get out. There might be just a few little bits where you've obviously, I mean, I don't know if you, when you're basting, if you put a knot in or you just go over a couple of times to secure the stitch. That's what I did. And just removing them. And then, I mean, it's up to you. You do take all the papers out all in one go at the end, or do them as you go along. I've done enough, so I've just got ones around the edges to do now. I always leave the edges part until last, because again, it just keeps that structure in place. I mean, the other thing is if you wanted to trim this edge down with the papers in, you can do if you want to. I guess it depends what the project is that you're doing. Some of these little triangle pieces, I mean, they've got holes in, obviously, where the needle's been going through for the basting. But some of these, because they're kind of like a very thin cardboard stiff paper, some of them would be okay to use again. So the ones that are okay to use again, I've just been popping them in this bag. I've not got any other project with using inch triangle. I keep going to say inch square. They're not squares. They're triangles. I've not got any other projects in mind at the moment, but you never know. I might do. So it's worth just keeping the ones that can be used again. I mean, you can't use them over and over because you're just going to be making holes. And there are some people that do the basting with kind of like a temporary glue stick. You can do it that way as well if you want. I've never done it that way. So I don't know how good these would be afterwards when you take them out. I can't imagine that it'd be too bad because it's temporary glue, so you've got to get them out. But anyway, so just taking them out. As I said, I've already removed a lot of the stitches. And again, it's another, I mean, unpicking, if you've got to unpick something, if you're making if you're doing a project where unpicking is because you've made a mistake, it can be very, very frustrating. But with this, obviously, you're meant to unpick, and it's quite the opposite. I quite like it. It's pulling the stitches out, and again, quite a relaxing thing to do. What do other people think about unpicking? Is it your worst nightmare? I guess if you've made something and you've made a mistake and the stitches, if it's machine made and the stitches are very close together, which makes it a bit harder, or excuse me, if you're in a rush to make something, then it can be quite annoying. You've got to start then unpicking stitches and starting again, basically. And if you're doing something that's got where you're using a fabric that frays, you've got to be very careful then. So I'm just coming to the end. And once you've got to the end, your fabric, really, you can do whatever you want with it. Because this is a small project, it's not taken, obviously, as long to do, because it's quite time consuming. When I did, as I said before, when I did this one, this is using, I think, the 3-inch hexagons. When I did this one, that took me a few years to do. But what I did was just pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. But I absolutely love the results of it, and I really enjoyed making it. And it's something that's just going to last a very long time, and it's something that's personal. When you're making your own fabric, it's something that's very personal to you. Because let's face it, if you're making fabric like this, nobody else has got it, have they? No one else has got the same fabric. So as you know, I'm turning mine into a little coat for little Betty. Little Betty is quite tiny. She only weighs, I think it's 2.5 kilograms. So she is a tiny dog, as you've seen. And when it's cold outside, or when it's wet, when it's really cold, that is, she does feel the cold because she's only got the one layer in a coat of fur. You know how some dogs have kind of like 2 layers of fur, but she doesn't, and her fur is quite thin as well. So often when you're stroking her, you can see her back and her head. You can see her skin, and so she does get cold. So I always, if it's really cold, put a little coat on her, just to help keep her warm. Let's get this last bit out. This bit's a bit stubborn. If you get a bit that's just a bit stubborn, just gently keep easing at the stitches until it comes away. Don't pull so it rips the fabric. If you do that, it's just going to ruin your fabric. It's just going to make a mess. I'll just do this. I've got a few more to do. I'll just do this last couple, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do next. That's a stubborn one, so I'll show you now. So once you've got all your pieces out, I've probably got about 8, 9, 10 left in around the edges. Once you've done all that, that is your fabric for your project that you want to do. On the back, mine looks like that. A bit messy, but you're not going to see that. Well, you're not going to see it if you're lining it, or if you're turning it into a quilt or something. You're going to have like backing fabric wadding and all of that. I'm going to quilt. I'm going to put a very, very thin layer of wadding, or am I? Yes, I'm going to put a very, very thin layer of wadding and then the backing fabric. I don't want this a thick quilt because, again, it's for a dog and it's on fur. And although she does get cold, I don't want to overheat her either. So I'm going to put a very thin layer of some kind of wadding. I'm not sure what yet. But I'm just going to put a very thin layer in, and then I'm going to have a backing fabric. And what I've done is I've made this template, and this will just fit round little Betty's body like that. So I've got a little kind of curve at the top, which will go around the back of her neck, and then just long enough just to sort of cover down towards the tail. And this fits perfectly. And it's all straight out. That fits perfectly. Whoops, onto my fabric. Okay, and then because I've got backing fabric, which is a nice kind of swirly purple. In fact, it's very similar to this purple here that I've used. I shall make 2 little Velcro straps, one to just sort of fit and secure it around that part of her neck, and then one to just go under the tummy, because obviously if you're doing something for a dog, then you need to make sure that if she needs to go to the toilet and things like that, she's got access for that. Okay, so I'm not going to show you the whole of making the little coat, but what I will show you what it's like when I've finished, because obviously these videos about the English paper piecing are not about making a dog dog coat. And yeah, I mean, because I'm going to quilt it, I think I'll probably just put some hand stitches through the quilting, just here and there, because that's quite colourful and quite busy. I don't want all fancy quilting on it, because it's just going to take the emphasis away from the design. So what I'll probably do is just do some hand stitches here and there just to quilt it in. The other thing to remember as well is once you quilt something, again, that's going to impact the size of the piece that you're doing, okay? Depending on how you're quilting it and how close your stitches are going to be together, it can just have that impact, and the fabric will end up being slightly smaller, okay? So we're coming to the end now, and I just wanted to mention one last thing before I go. Is when in the last two videos, I just sort of have a chat, and I've got the dogs in the background, and sometimes they show an appearance, sometimes you just hear them. And if you remember, there's little Betty here who you see quite often. Then I've got Hilda. She is sitting next to me actually, but she's the other end of the settee, and she's busy chewing her nails. Hilda, you come in. You come in. Come in to say hello. No. Are you? Yeah. Oh, here she is. You can see her there. Sometimes you see her, sometimes you don't. But she's a dog that kind of keeps herself to herself and sleeps basically a lot. Okay. And then, if you remember, there was my other dog, my collie Anna. Sadly, Anna passed away recently. If you remember if you've seen any of my other videos, I might have mentioned that she's been quite poorly with diabetes. And unfortunately, we lost her. So I just wanted to just mention that, because obviously if you've seen her on, you might be thinking, well, where's the other dog gone, and all of that. It's very, very sad for us, and I'm sure that if you have dogs, you'll appreciate how devastating it can be. I just wanted to mention that at the end, because I didn't want to sort of talk about that and then go on to talk about this project. Okay, so that's the end of the English paper piecing project. If you have any questions or anything you want to say, leave me a comment. I will answer them when I can. If you've enjoyed this project and you want to see more projects, if you've seen any of the other videos, you know that I do quilting, I make different things and all of that. I'm doing a thing at the moment where I'm completing kits that I've accumulated over the years, and there's a quilting kit series that I'm also doing. There'll be another. I think I'm going to be doing some needle felting. I'm going to do a needle felting project next. So if you like what I do and you want to see more, think about subscribing. If you subscribe, you can press the alert button, and then it will let you know whether other videos are coming up. And also give me a thumbs up. That's really, really helpful and really nice. It's encouraging because it kind of shows me that people are enjoying it. I'm doing the right things, and if I'm doing the wrong things or if I make mistakes, that's absolutely fine. Just let me know and we'll go over that, because I do make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes. Is there a perfect crafter out there? I don't know. But anyway, I'm waffling on, so I'll leave that with a goodbye, and I will show you little Betty's coat when I finish. Thank you for watching. Bye.